What happens when Konstantin Kisin goes up against the likes of Deborah Francis-White, also known as the Guilty Feminist, on his podcast Trigonometry? Well, you get an over 2 hour and 20-something minutes embarrassing, awkward conversation, more for Deborah's standpoint than Konstantin. And it was one of those podcasts that make you cringe because you're listening to an utter dingbat that's got no idea what the hell she's talking about half the time. And Konstantin patiently doing his very, very best to go up against the likes of someone with no real brain cells in her head. And she is just flip-flopping around. And here is a woman that has written a book, ladies and gentlemen. It's titled Six Conversations We're Scared to Have, an essential guide for fostering nuanced and intricated conversations in today's polarized society. That was from Gillian Anderson, believe it or not. So she's also got David Tennant, Gemma Khan, Emma Thompson, Gillian Anderson, and Tom Allen, basically all the wokies endorsing the book. No one bloody cares about that. And let's have a look at what this book is actually about. Why have divisive conversations become so flammable? Is there any value in cancelling historical figures? Has the so-called transgender debate become so toxic? And what can we do to genuinely help? Why are the most progressive people calling for censorship in comedy? Is cancel culture real? And if so, can shaming and shunning really work? How do we achieve progress in today's, screaming hellscape? We are understandably scared to have some of these conversations, but Deborah Francis-White is even more scared of not having them. Well, understandably so, because she is a radicalized feminist who, believe it or not, she escaped a cult growing up and she's become part of a cult known as the feminist movement. So, having grown up in a cult, she knows the value of freedom of speech, critical thinking, well, she lacks a lot of that, and the ability to disagree while really fighting for change. I don't think she's really done much change at all, to be honest with you. In her new book, she encourages us to ask difficult questions, really listen. Well, she doesn't really listen to Konstantin at all in the podcast. You'll see in just a moment what I'm talking about, and know when to negotiate and when to resist. She does a lot of resisting in the podcast. She is very good at resisting Konstantin, even though Konstantin is actually really brilliant. She misses everything that Konstantin says. She just, the point, which is an important point, I'll have you know, goes completely over her head. And that happened for over 2-something hours of the podcast. If you haven't listened to it, definitely go and listen to it. And I guarantee you'll find it very, very difficult to actually get to the very end. But if you do end up getting to the very end, I congratulate you, because it was bloody painful. It's kind of like listening to the Joe Rogan podcast recently with Dr. Zahi Hawass, I think, who's the archaeologist or the Egyptologist, something along those lines, that knows about a little bit about pyramids. But I think the whole podcast itself was geared around the fact that Zahi says that he's a scientist 1 minute, then says that he's not a scientist another minute, and then says that if you don't know anything, he knows everything. You guys know nothing. And if it's not in his book, it didn't happen. And if it's not online, it didn't happen. It has to be in his book. His book is the gospel of Zahi Hawass. And he always goes after people that differ from him. And I felt Joe's pain the whole time, because I felt like he was struggling to talk to him. And I was struggling to listen. I'm like, what the hell is this even about? I'm not learning anything. And that's kind of how I felt with the podcast with Konstantin Kisin and this guilty feminist. I mean, she went on one feminist march and that apparently changed her entire life around. And she escaped one cult only to fall back into another one and create her own, pretty much. Have a watch of this, ladies and gentlemen.
Oldest indigenous culture in the world. Do you know why there's so few of them? We killed them.
Yes.
We committed a genocide.
Why were we able to do that? Why were we able to do that?
What are you implying?
I'm just asking you the question.
Are you implying because we're better?
No.
What are you implying?
We were technologically far more advanced. That's what I'm implying. What's not clear about that?
So you're saying
I'm saying we were technologically more advanced. Would you
So you're
disagree
saying we're
with that?
superior to Australian Aboriginals?
That's quite the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm not saying we were superior. I'm saying we were technologically more advanced.
So how is that the opposite?
Superior implies a moral quality. I'm not making any moral implication. You seem to be, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is...
I think most people would hear it that way.
No.
Again, you're a very intelligent man. How would most people hear that?
Most people would hear what I'm saying for what I'm saying, which is...
Don't think they would. Why? What's the point of this question?
The point of this question is
because we came in with our better gendered binaries,
sorry.
and therefore we were able to kill them.
It's going to work a lot better if you just hear the point I'm making instead of...
I really cannot understand what it could possibly be other than we are better.
Well, let me explain it to you what it could possibly be. And
what's it got to do with the gender binary?
Your argument, we're just talking about the argument, and you seem to get quite heated about this, which is completely unnecessary. You think it's necessary?
I'm a bit stunned by what you're implying.
No, you're acting in a kind of passive-aggressive way, which indicates that you're not happy.
I genuinely am being 100% authentic. My visceral reaction to a white man sitting and saying to me, and why were we able to commit genocide on them, and then just pausing.
Yes.
Is very visceral to me.
Well, let's go back. First of all, it's interesting that you brought up my skin color because I thought that was the exact opposite of what the point you're trying to make in the book. But anyway, let's come back to the argument.
You haven't read my book, so you wouldn't know what the point is.
You said that the point of your book is it's all about you can't say this as this person and whatever. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
You're very reductive. I thought you were a lot more intellectual than this.
I think this is very revealing.
I heard Konstantin, what he was saying. Wasn't implying at all that Western civilization was better. They just were more technologically advanced. And the Aboriginals that, yes, the settlers that came, a vast majority of them were actually helped by the Aboriginal people. And then some wars broke out, understandably. And the guilty feminists are saying why there's so few of them today. It's not because we knocked them off. There wasn't that many of them to begin with. Yes, they claim to be the oldest Indigenous people group, I think, based around some certain scientific readings. They're saying, I looked on Google, it says about 65,000 years. Now, I don't even think the Earth has been alive or around that long, to be honest with you. I think the Earth has only been... we've only been on this earth for roughly around 7,000 years, thereabouts. So 65,000 years, gee, that's a very long time. And you're saying to me that in that period of time, they didn't do anything to do with technology at all. You're saying that they had 65,000 years of being on this earth, and yet other civilizations were more technologically advanced than the Aboriginals. That should tell you everything you need to know. And then Konstantin asks, so why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that there are so few Aboriginal people around? There are still a lot, I'll have you know. There's still a lot, not that many, I don't think. We're not sure how many there actually were around when the settlers came. But anyway, that's beside the point. The point is loads of the Indigenous Australians were knocking each other off, pretty much. They were primitive, and yes, they took care of the land. They cultivated the land 100%. But when it came to, say, another tribe versus another tribe, you got anywhere close, the vast majority of what would go on would be one tribe would annihilate another tribe. And so why do you think there's so few of them? Because before we even got here and actually helped them out a lot, quite a bit, they were taking each other out. And then also when the settlers came in, were very, very sick, obviously Aboriginal people did help. We are a Christian nation, I'll have you know. We were founded on Christian principles. But yes, I know there were some bad faith individuals that came here and did some horrible things. I'm not denying that at all. But saying that the whole argument that the guilty feminist missed Konstantin wasn't implying that Western civilization is better by saying we're more technologically advanced. That's just a fact. We are technologically advanced. But she saw it as a moral implication. Oh, we're much better than the Indigenous people because how dare you say that let me just say this. I know this wasn't Konstantin's argument, but I'll say it. Anyway, we are better in many, many ways. We help them become better too, I'll have you know. So when you have a civilization that is better than another civilization, they usually come in, it's happened all throughout history, and they help that civilization that's a little bit less advanced become more advanced. What a painful conversation. And this is just a little part of the full 2 hour and 20-minute conversation. And here is a woman claiming that you can't have these kinds of conversations, but when you have these kinds of conversations with her, she doesn't even want to have them to begin with, because apparently she's right and you're wrong. That's not how you have a conversation, I'll have you know. Like, there's supposed to be a genuine, authentic sort of dialogue, not to be like one of those people that uses the buzzwords now, authenticity and everything like that. I'm ashamed that it's actually become a buzzword nowadays. It's just a word. It's real. Like, be who you actually are and who you say you are. Be that. And if you disagree, then disagree. Say that I don't agree with you and here is why, but don't become passive aggressive, which is what the guilty feminist was. And Konstantin, bless him, I know he was making a very fantastic argument. And the guilty feminist, when you bring up gender binaries and then you kind of equate them to the likes of, say, mass murder that took place for the Indigenous people, you've lost me. Like, you lose everyone aside from dingbats that go, oh, yes, it was definitely to do with a gender binary. That was it. That was what the Indigenous people, that's what happened to them. They were massacred by the gender binary. You've got to be a special kind of dingbat to believe that. But Konstantin, again, who's a very smart, intellectual person, leaves her utterly speechless. Like, a couple of moments. You saw, she just had no idea what she was saying. She was shocked that Konstantin actually was saying such a thing and that he believes in what he's talking about. And yet she's not believing, or it's just going completely over her head. It's quite funny, to be honest. But how do you shut up a Marxist? You had the Egyptians, they were building pyramids. The Romans were conquering the world. You had industrialization all over the place. And you're telling me that the Indigenous Australians, all they came up with was a boomerang or a didgeridoo for 65,000 years, the oldest known Indigenous population in the world. And you're telling me the best they could come up with was a didgeridoo and a boomerang. It's because they haven't really, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, the industrialization that happened as a result of Europeans coming over and helping, for the most part, yes, horrible things took place, but horrible things took place in every single, the Portuguese did it, the Spanish did it, the French did it, the English did it, didn't matter who it was. If you were a conqueror of another nation, guess what? There were some atrocities that took place, but then there was also some industrialization. There was helping that culture a little bit if they chose to assimilate. Let's just say that. But anyway, loads of these feminist types, they're so illogical. And it's just ironic how she's going, oh, you can't have these conversations, but when you have them with me, I'm going to get passive aggressive and I'm going to attack you because I can't actually bear to think about the fact that you're right and I'm wrong. That just tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? But anyway, well done, Konstantin. And if you guys can stand the rest of the conversation, I dare you. It's quite painful. But anyway, that's enough from me. You guys take care. Be blessed. And I'll see you all in the next video.